Hey, it's Mars, and this is Let's Make a Dungeon Crawler Part 22. In this video, we'll be setting up a campfire, and in doing so, we're going to learn about two things. The first is how we work with 3D sound in this game, and the second is our first look at animations. So let's start with the sound. I've downloaded a free campfire off of the Unity Asset Store, and I'm going to drop that into my scene. And I guess I should maybe put some dirt around it here real quick. I'll get rid of the grass in the area. Let's paint a little bit of dirt. Let's also add some maybe some charcoal looking rock underneath it. Not terribly important. Okay. So now we've got our campfire in the scene, and we want to, as I said, let's work with the 3D sound first. So I'm going to add a audio source component. I'll drop in a 5-second loop of a fire sound effect. We have the play on awake and loop checkboxes. It's a really loud sound effect, so I'm going to set the volume to 0.04, and that'll sound fine in game. And we're going to change spatial blend from 2D to 3D. Let's hear how that sounds in game. So you'll notice the audio source is on my, so the audio listener is on my player, and my player is facing south. The campfire is on his right side, which is why you can hear the fire in your right headphone or right speaker. Unfortunately, if I was to spin in circles, so does the fire sound effect. I don't typically like that, so all we have to do to make it so that our 3D stereo sound is turned into mono sound in this case, I'm just going to set the spread to 180. Now, no matter which direction our player is facing, we'll hear the sound in both headphones equally. And that's exactly what I want for this top-down dungeon crawler style game. I'm also going to set the volume roll-off to a linear roll-off between 1 and 10. So that basically means this smaller circle, if we stand inside of the smaller circle, the audio will be played at max volume. And then we have to be inside of the larger circle to hear it at all. That's this one here. So as our player enters the max distance, we'll hear the volume quietly, and then when we get into the small circle, it'll be at max volume. So here I suppose a linear roll-off of 1 to 7.6, that's about fine for this campfire. Let's also take a look. Actually, let's hear how that sounds in game. So that's actually a bit loud. I might even drop that down to 0.03, and then maybe make the min distance a little smaller. So there we go. We have perfect 3D sound in our game. Let's also take a look at animations. Now in Unity you have legacy and non-legacy animations. We're not going to be using legacy animations in this video series because they are deprecated. There are a lot of bugs within the legacy animation system, and the people over at Unity aren't going to fix them. It's an old system that isn't being updated anymore. Now if we go to Window, Animation, that's Control 6, it gives us this little window here. I've docked it next to my console. When you import models into Unity, it comes with a Model, Rig, and Animations tab. Typically, the Import Animations checkbox is checked, even if the model itself doesn't have animations. That means that more often than not, a lot of the models in your project will have animation components, even if there are none. This isn't good because if we click on our animation down here and we create a new animation for our campfire, let's name this Test Anim. Unfortunately, it's been created as a legacy animation, even though that's not what we want. Unity gave us a legacy animation because there was an animation component. We can check to see if it's legacy or not by clicking on the animation, clicking on the drop down in the top right of our inspector, and going to debug mode. Sure enough, the animation was legacy, which means we can't use it in our animator. I'll delete the test anim. And this time, let's remove the animation component, which shouldn't be there in the first place. I'm going to move the inspector back to normal mode. And then this time let's create an animation. You'll see here it says create an animator and an animation clip. So this will give us an animator controller with the animation clip inside. That's just what we want. So I'll name this Campfire Animation. Sure enough, we've been given an animator component with the animator controller, and inside is our animation we just created with the Create Animation button. Now we're ready to start animating. In Unity, we have our dope sheet and our curves. I personally don't use curves, but if we check our dope sheet, all it is a horizontal timeline where we can keyframe different things. We can keyframe values on and off inside of a game object. We can keyframe positions and rotations. For this example, we'll go to our light component and we're going to change the range and intensity of our light so that it looks like the light is flickering from the fire. So we'll click on our campfire. This is our campfire animation. We'll hit the record button so that any values we change from now on will be keyframed into our dope sheet. I'll grab the light component and I'll change the range and intensity. And we can see they've been keyframed at 0 seconds into the animation. The samples is set to 60, and I'll just make an animation that lasts 1 second. So let's start with an intensity of 1 and an intensity of 1 and a range of 5. And then throughout the animation, we'll just wiggle it between 5 and 6, and then 1 and 1.5. And that should give us a nice flickering animation. Like I said, this is a 1 second animation, so I'll go to 1 second, and then I'm going to set it back to 5 and 1, which I believe was the starting values. Yep. So throughout the animation, the great thing about Unity's dope sheet is that when you make a keyframe, it will tween between the two values. It animates, so to speak, even if you only have 1 or 2 keyframes. So let's add a few more. I will just randomly move the range and intensity up. Let's go back down. Let's go back up. Back down. Back up. And back down again. I'll turn off record mode and hit play so we can see what it looks like. I'll go ahead and go to my lighting tab, and let's make the ambient color in our scene. I'll save this in case we want to go back. Let's make the ambient color a bit darker. And I'll also grab the directional light in the scene, and I'll reduce that brightness as well. Let's hit play and see how the scene looks now. That's all for this one. Thank you so much for watching, and if you learned something, hit that like button. Join me next time, and we will be turning off this rooftop when we go inside the building.